Get ready with me to talk about how I found out I was pregnant. It was the night before graduation. I was setting up everything for the next day. I was deep cleaning my room. I was just sorting out everything that I needed for graduation day. The night before graduation, I was so sick. I've never felt that feeling before. I was super nauseous. Not nauseous, but I was very lightheaded. I was super weak. Like I was dead as on my floor on the ground, like done. And my sister was helping me at the time, so I was just telling her like, can you please take over? Like I can't do nothing. Like I need to lay down. So I proceeded to lay down, and I was super sick that night. Like dead ass, my sister brought me a hot rag to put on my head. Like I was super sick, and it was just out of nowhere. So then I'm a little worried because I'm like, what if I'm like this the next day? Like I need to be good for my, obviously, my graduation. So I proceed to, go on with the night to see where it takes me. So now it's graduation morning. I'm feeling a little bit better. I'm kind of relieved because that night before I was super sick. I didn't think I could make it the next day. But I'm feeling a little bit better. Still under the weather, but I thought I was just sick. Like I would get through it. So on my graduation day, I was in the very first row. So me being on the first row was honestly the worst timing. I was in front of everybody getting their diplomas, all the APs, principals. I was in front of everybody, so it was the worst timing possible. It struck me again. I was super sick. I just felt so more nauseous than I did the night before. So I literally felt like I wanted to throw up. I had to swallow my throw up because I was not gonna throw up in front of everybody in the stadium. So I was super nervous and scared that, something won't turn out right. So all I was thinking about that day was to hurry up and let's get out of here. Like I just wanted to get my diploma and leave. It's so sad because I wish I would have experienced that day way more meaningful and like exciting, but I just wanted to get out of there because I was super sick. And mind you, that day I felt like was the hottest day in Houston in forever. Like it was so freaking hot. I was sweating like crazy. I was in heels, and mind you, like we had to walk in the back of the stadium and walk all the way to the front to get to our family. Oh my gosh, I just wanted to sit on that floor and let my family come to me because I just couldn't walk in that heat, especially on top of that how I was feeling. So it's so crowded, so much people, and a family member finally finds me, and I get all to my family together, and I'm ready to go. Let's take these pictures and go. And like if you see my pictures on my graduation day, I look like shit. I look like I wanted to go, like hurry up, let's say cheese and let's go, because I was super out of it. I was like, I needed to get in that car immediately. So now that I think about this, it was so freaking obvious something was severely wrong with me, because once I got to the car, I deadass just rolled the seat back and laid down and like knocked out. Like I didn't even get to like talk about my day, just talk about the moment of me graduating. I deadass just knocked out, and it was hot. I wanted to undress myself and just get home. And that day, my uncle had a dinner planned for me like immediately right after my ceremony, and I wanted to cancel it so bad I did not want to go. And I was like, why do I have to go? But girl, it's about you. Because I could not do it no more. And I was dead ass when I got home. I was laying on my bed for a good hour because I was dreading to get dressed. I just wanted to be in bed and just relax because of how I was feeling. But I couldn't, like I had to participate because I just felt bad that they wanted to, congratulate me and celebrate me. So I changed, and let's just go. And keep in mind, like my boyfriend is not knowing how I'm feeling. I'm not communicating that with him because I was just so focused on like getting my act together to be good in front of everybody, because obviously it was all about me to congratulate me. So we get to the restaurant and we're sitting at the table, and I just get this like struck of coldness. Like I was freezing freaking cold. I was shaking, I was shivering, and it wasn't even cold up in there, girl. I was literally out of there. I was asking for everybody's jacket. No one had a jacket at the time because it was so hot outside, but my sister luckily had a jacket, so I covered myself with it and ordered our food. Not one bite was touched, girl. Not one bite was touched. I could not put that food in my mouth. I just couldn't. I told my boyfriend, like, I can't eat that. Like, I'm gonna have to take it to go because I seriously cannot eat that. But I was so severely, like, really bad. Still to, you know, take in every moment because I know my family's congratulating me and just wanting to be together. So I'm still trying to make conversations with everybody and talk to everybody and not just seem off, because then I would, like, questions will be asked and it was not the time for that. So the next day was my graduation party. We were decorating, setting up the food, everything. I'm still very, very sick the next day, but I'm trying to again seem normal because it's about me. I'm trying to play the part, but I was still very, very sick. But I do remember my graduation party. I wasn't as bad as my graduation day, because I do remember, you know, laughing with everybody, dancing, just living the moment. And I'm like now communicating with my boyfriend that I am feeling very, very, very sick. His first thought is to take a pregnancy test. That was his very, very first thought, because obviously I was having all the symptoms. I was having nausea, I was having headaches, I was feeling weak. I was like, obviously that shivering, like it's not like my normal self. And that never happens to me. Even when I'm sick, I don't act that bad. So at this point I was like, there's no way. Like, I'm waiting to see a negative sign, because there's obviously no way. We have the, not the digital ones, we have the one where it says like the minus or the plus. And so that day I remember we literally paid like over $70 just on tests, just because of how in denial. Even though my boyfriend was still going through the same thing I was, he was very, very comforting, and he was just bringing me back to earth, because he was super comforting, and he was just telling us how we're gonna get through it and what our plan was, because I was completely blank. I didn't know what to do. You're in that stage, all you're thinking about is what's next. Like, that's all you're thinking about. Even especially whenever you are a young mom or you're becoming a young mom, you're just thinking about what's next. So that's basically the end of how I found out. But if y'all want a story time about how I told my parents, that's another thing. Speaking of, look at that cute thing.
I'm making this video to share my Airbnb experience literally from hell. It was a nightmare, and I hope after this video people stop using Airbnb because their customer service is absolutely terrible. So my family has come down to Southern California for the month of July. So we obviously booked an Airbnb because it's easier with a big family to stay in a house rather than a hotel. So we get to the Airbnb, and obviously it looks fine. You know, pictures do look better, but it looks fine. You know, we could definitely stay there, like live in it for a month. It's great. You know, it's a nice house on a lake. Everything looks good. So as we're in the house, we are unloading our stuff. We are kind of sitting on the couches, on the furniture, on the chairs. Me and my little sister start to feel kind of itchy, you know, just kind of like itchy here and there. Our backs are a little itchy, a little bit, just, you know, something's up. My eyes start to get kind of watery, you know, I'm itching my eyes, whatever. I'm not thinking it's the house, obviously, because why would it be the house? It looks clean, it seems to be fine, whatever. So we end up leaving the house to go get groceries and whatever, and I noticed that I stop itching, my eyes aren't itchy, that kind of all those symptoms I was feeling subside as soon as I left the property. Now we come back to the house, we decide maybe there could have been leftover dog hair or dust or something on these couches. So we decide to put sheets over the couches so we could sit comfortably and see if the itching goes away. Now we are still itching. The symptoms kind of seem to be getting worse as we are sitting in this house. We've tried different rooms. We are moving all over the house. It's not that big of a house, but we're just trying to see if it's certain rooms or whatever. So we obviously are staying in the house. So we go to bed that night and we wake up the next morning and the itching has gotten severely, severely worse. Me and my sister both also woke up in the middle of the night with very strong headaches that almost made us feel like we got hit with like a baseball bat. We were just feeling really weird and we were itching like crazy. We had welts on our arms, on our knees. Our backs were super itchy. My eyes were very itchy. I was sneezing constantly, coughing, felt like there was just like something in my throat, like dust or cat hair or dog hair, whatever it could have been. So by the hour that we keep on staying longer in this home, we keep on getting more symptoms of being allergic to something in the house. So we decide that this home is literally not going to work for us. We are allergic to something in the home, whether it be dust, animal hair, it could have not been cleaned well, mold, something. We are severely allergic and we cannot stay in there any longer. The allergies kept on getting worse as we're staying in the home, and we already slept the night in the home as well. So we message the owner and we say, hey, my mom, messages him, hey, my daughters are severely allergic to the home. They're sneezing, they're this, she explains all the symptoms. And the owner responds with, I'm so sorry, but I need proof, that they're actually allergic to the home so I can, try and work something out for you and, offer a refund or whatever. So we're like, okay, we go to urgent care. We wait 3 hours at urgent care. We obviously have to pay to go to the urgent care. And we get diagnosed that we cannot go back to the house, that we are allergic, that there is an allergy going on to something in the home. We get a whole doctor's note, saying that we cannot go back to the house and that if we have to go back, we need to stay outside. So please let me know how we're supposed to go and sleep in there for a month. So we send our host the letter, and we also send him pictures of our hives, of our welts, of our, itchiness. We send him all the pictures, and the host is still refusing to give us a refund and says that he cannot give us a refund because he's going to get penalized after we provided him the proof that he needed in order to not get penalized by Airbnb. So the host wants us to go to Airbnb customer support instead of talking to him. So we start chatting with Airbnb customer support. We tell them our story. We send them pictures. We send them all the proof that we have. We send them the medical notes that we have that are literally from a doctor. Now, I want to keep this short, but basically what happens is that Airbnb tells us that it's up to the host if he wants to refund us, and the host has only agreed to a 50% refund. Mind you, we had paid tons of money because it's a month-long stay. Airbnb claims that they cannot help us any further than this. We can only get 50% of our money back, even though we only stayed there for one night. You would think that Airbnb, being such a big company, can cover the other 50%, even if the host didn't want to give it to us. But no. We talked to multiple customer service reps, the senior reps at Airbnb, and nobody wants to help. So I'm making this TikTok in hopes that someone else doesn't, make the same mistake that we did with using Airbnb, or that someone from Airbnb can see this video and see how horrible of an experience we had.
Story time on the time my mom kicked me out. So fun fact, my mom actually kicked me out twice, but this is the second time. Okay, so basically it started off as a normal day. It was like the summer, it was June. And I had my little boyfriend, I guess, at the time come over. So basically, me and him hung out and it was chill or whatever. We hung out all day. He ate dinner with my family, the whole thing. So how this all sprung up is that I had found another girl on his phone. So I had went downstairs and told my mom after we had already ate dinner and everything, because that's when I found out, right after. She was defending him. She was like, well, they're probably just friends, blah, 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 this and that. Mind you, first time meeting him and defending him. And I'm like, no, Mom, I know this girl, I know how this is, this is another girl he's talking to. And she was like, okay. And I was like, please don't say anything, he's about to leave. Well, my mom being my mom, she couldn't keep her mouth shut, so she came upstairs and started asking him questions. She was like, so are you talking to anyone, da 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 da, this and that. She was like, because you and Hallie are just friends, right? And I was like, Mom, no, we're not just friends, I already told you this, you know this, you know him, you know about him being in my life. And he was like, no, I'm not talking to anyone, just her, da 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 da. And she was like, well, don't lie to me, it's okay if you are, just tell me. Obviously, me being me, I get mad at this, and I'm like, no, he literally was talking to another girl, blah blah. Whatever, he ends up leaving, and my mom is defending him to me. She's like, you were so disrespectful to him, da da da, blah blah blah, this and that. And I was like, no, I wasn't. He deserved what I said because he literally had a whole other girl in his phone. I don't care. Me and her get into it bad. We're arguing crazily. It was bad. Like I said, we got into it bad, but later on is where it gets worse, because we actually we were fine then. We made up, whatever. And my mom goes downstairs, and later on she calls my name and I don't hear it.
So she calls it again, and then she starts cussing at me. So I finally hear her. So I go downstairs and I'm like, you're not talking to me like that. Why are you cussing at me? I didn't hear you. And she was like, I know one of y'all heard me, da 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 da, this and that. And I was like, we seriously didn't. Like, you're all the way downstairs. I'm not gonna hear you unless you're screaming at the top of your lungs. I'm just not. Safe to say, my mom wasn't really happy by that answer, and we start arguing again. And it's like way worse this time. She literally got all up in my face, like was screaming at me, pushed me, cussing me out. I'm cussing her out. It's crazy. She's like, I'm gonna tell your dad everything, da da da. She's like still defending him. She's like, you're not gonna disrespect someone like that. And I was like, he boy disrespected me first, like I don't care. And then she's like, yeah, and you said F you to me and that you hated me. Mind you, I never said that. And then I told her if she hit me, I was gonna call the cops on her. And she was like, you know what, I'll call the cops right now. And I said, okay, I'm leaving. She was like, I'm gonna call the cops and tell them stuff I'm not gonna say. And we just start arguing even more, and I kept telling her, I was like, you're drunk, you don't know what you're talking about. And so then she got like super mad and told me to get the F out of her house. At that point, I was taking it more as like an opportunity to leave. I was like, okay, yeah, like I'm leaving then. Like you told me to leave, I'm gone. Because I had already told her, I was like, if it's gonna be like this, I'll just leave. Like I'll just leave. And she was like not wanting me to leave, but then she told me to leave, so I packed my stuff. So my sister calls her mom and is like asking her to come get us, but her mom doesn't really like me, so I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. I was leaving actually, and with my sister's mom, and she talked to her mom and she was like, Hallie, don't do this. And I was like, you did this, like you did this. And she was like, okay. And then she left, or no, we left, and then she called my dad and told him everything. Everything, as in I had boy over, I had thrown a party, like literally everything. And mind you, my dad's a stricter parent, my mom's not strict, so obviously I was gonna get in big trouble. Well, I actually hadn't known she told my dad until my dad texted me, he called me, and he was like, why do me and your mom have two different stories? At that point, I already knew I was cooked, so I was like, yeah, I lied, I'm sorry. And then, like, I just agreed with everything he said, because there was really no getting out of that. And my mom called me, and she was like, so what'd your dad have to say? And I was like, nothing. He wasn't even that mad, because he wasn't. He was just like, don't lie to me, like, and you need to settle down. Like, you need to quit acting crazy, you know? He wasn't really even mad. It was just, he just told me I need to chill out. And she was like, that's all he said? That's all he said? Like, she was trying to prove a point by telling my dad. A point did not get proven. Me and my mom started arguing, and she was tweaking out because she was overly drunk. And so I blocked her, and we haven't talked since. That's the story on how my mom kicked me out. Mind you, this was like a month.
Get ready with me for work at 17 and pregnant while I answer common questions I get about being 17 and pregnant. So obviously, everyone's first question usually is, where's the dad? So to make a long story short, I broke up with him when I found out I was pregnant because I found out he'd been lying to me about his entire identity, the entirety of our relationship. So next is how I found out I was pregnant. I felt weird and I thought I was being crazy, but I took a pregnancy test and it came back positive, and I didn't expect it to come back positive, and I was appalled. Okay, next question is, how did my mom react? My mom wasn't mad or anything, but she was definitely upset. She didn't show it a ton, but I could absolutely tell that she was very upset. This one is kind of funny. How did the dad react? People always ask me this. Basically, again, I can make other videos about this because it's a very long story. He was like smashing stuff around his apartment and breaking things and like screaming at the top of his lungs. He was screaming at me. I think at one point he called an ambulance on himself to take him to the hospital because he went to the hospital and said that he needed to be sedated. Oh, I should probably also add that he begged me to get an abortion, and I was like, no. And then he kept on begging me. He was like, you have to get an abortion, you have to get an abortion. And I was like, no. And then so I stopped answering him because every single time I'd answer him, he would be like, you have to get an abortion. And then he would blow up my phone. He literally blew up my phone begging me to get an abortion. And I was like, no. People also ask how our relationship is now, like my relationship with the father. There is none. I like completely cut contact with him. First I had it down to just email, and then I stopped answering him.
A lot of people also ask what's my plan. So I'll be 18 in 2 weeks, and currently I'm in the process of finding a second job, getting a second job, and getting my GED. In my state, you can't get it until you're 18, so that's why I wasn't able to do it prior. I plan to work until I'm literally ready to give birth, so if I have to be induced, I'll have a set date, but if I don't get induced, I'll probably stop at like 40 weeks if I make it. Basically just work until I can't anymore. I am going to go to college once I'm done with my GED. I'm going to be doing that online though, because I obviously don't want to be trying to juggle a baby, a job, and going in person to college. Also, when I'm due in the fall. I don't like to share my exact due date or exactly how far along I am in weeks, just because of the situation with the father. I don't want anybody knowing like exactly when I'm ready to deliver, but I would totally share if I could. I can't really think of any more questions off the top of my head. These are just the most common questions I've been asked from like coworkers and stuff. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them. I'm pretty much open to answering almost anything. I would be curious too. I completely understand the curiosity, and I understand it. And also, I want to be a cautionary tale to people that you should be very, very careful. None of this is fun. It's actually rather, it's kind of miserable, I'd say. Like, I had a really, really, really hard pregnancy in the beginning, and I was actually so incredibly miserable, and it's a million times harder when you're doing it alone as a teenager. And I'm not saying everyone, but statistics do point to teenage mothers usually ending up being single mothers. Not everyone, okay? Don't take offense to that, but, it's statistics.
So I recently matched with a guy on Hinge. This was in the beginning of July, maybe end of May. We went on a couple of dates and they were all like really, really fun. So I didn't really have any complaints so far. His texting was kind of mid though, like he wasn't really being consistent with texting, but he had told me that like prior to us like starting to go out that he wasn't a very good texter, which, I understand some people are and some people aren't. Anyways, after the third date, he kind of like fell off and wasn't texting me, so I kind of just assumed that he like was no longer interested in me, so I like unmatched him on Hinge. And then maybe like a week later, he texted me and was like, oh, like I'm just too busy right now. I think we'd be better off as friends. Which at that point I kind of had already accepted. That's kind of like where it was going. So I agreed with him. I was like, yeah, that sounds good to me. He then proceeded to invite me to a house party that he was having the following weekend with all of his friends at a beach house in Duxbury. Now, I didn't think too much of it at the time because I just asked him, I was like, oh, can I like bring my friend with me? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I thought it would be like a great way to meet new people, socialize, because that's something that I've been like trying to work on. Anyways, this house party ends up happening just this past weekend. Originally, I thought the house party was going to be in Quincy, so when I invited my friend, she was totally down for it, but then when she found out it was in Duxbury, she was like, no, I'm not traveling that far, which is, like, totally fair. So I ended up going by myself, which is, like, really brave just for me in general, because I feel like 10 years ago, I would have never done something like this. And I did end up having a lot of fun. I met a lot of really cool people. Not a whole lot of single people there, honestly. It was an older party, like people in their 30s, 34 age range, and they were all married or they all were in a relationship, which is fine. It was still cool to like talk to people. Initially, I had planned on going on Friday and just being there for the day and then heading home. So I got there at like 10 a.m. on Friday, and when I arrived, the guy that invited me was like, oh, like you're here kind of early. There's not like a whole lot of people here. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Like I just came early to beat traffic. And he kind of like questioned me of like, I don't remember how it came about, but basically I was like, well, I'm not going to be staying the night. And he was kind of surprised by that. I think he like expected me to stay the night because the initial like party was happening on Saturday. But I had already made plans with some other people. So So I'm there Friday, and actually it seemed like really cool. It wasn't what I was expecting it to be, so I ended up rearranging my plans to hang out on Saturday because it seemed like it was going to be a really, like, fun party. And on Friday, he was, like, super chill with me, like, talking, like, you know, paying attention to me, or just, like, you know, not pretending like I wasn't there. And then Saturday rolls around, and he is the party host, so, like, I completely understand, like, if you're hosting a party and there were like 60 plus people there, that, you know, you're going to be busy and just like not able to give everybody your attention, which is totally fair. But it got to the point where like it almost seemed like he was avoiding me. Like I'd go up to him and talk to him, and then like mid like combo while I'm trying to talk to him, he like walks away and like completely ignores what I'm saying, which is just rude in my opinion. But anyways, I kind of just ignore his behavior because I'm assuming he's just like super stressed out, and he'd also said he wasn't feeling well because he wasn't drinking or eating anything. So, you know, I passed it off. I was like, whatever, you know, he's probably just stressed out. So 3 p.m. rolls around, and the party's starting to chill out a little bit. Not as many people are there anymore, and a lot of the party games are kind of starting to end. And this guy that had invited me, he had even said, he's like, okay, I can like finally chill now. Which I was like, sweet, like I'm so happy for you. And I was like going around talking to different people that I had previously met at the party and was just trying to enjoy my time. But even at this point, like even though he wasn't doing a whole lot, he was still avoiding me and like purposely not trying to talk to me. And that's when my feelings started to get hurt a little bit. So I ended up going inside. I noticed that he had been talking to this girl, and I just like, I was so exhausted from being outside in the sun, and I just like needed to take a break. So I go inside, and I end up going into his bedroom because it's like the one place where people aren't like interacting, and it's quiet and it's cold and the room is dark, and I'm getting to the point where I feel like I need a nap. So I'm kind of considering just like leaving and going home at this point. And about 15 minutes later, you'll never guess who walks into the room. Him and this girl. And he's like, oh, she was just looking to like go to the bathroom. I was like, yeah, okay, sure. Whatever you want to tell yourself to make yourself feel better about the situation. So she uses the bathroom, and then they leave again. And I'm just there by myself. So I finally decide it's time for me to leave because he clearly has like no interest in talking to me. I don't even know why I was invited to this party if he like doesn't seem to like me all that much. So I go to see if I can get out because there's so many cars parked on the street, and I wasn't sure if I was blocked in, but sure enough, I was blocked in, and I needed him to move his car in order for me to go home. So I go up to him, and he's talking to this girl in the kitchen, the same girl, and they are like locked in, and I like walk up, and he doesn't even like look at me. The girl knows I'm there. He has to know I'm there, but he literally doesn't look at me. And I wait to like try not to interrupt the conversation to see if he's like gonna ask me, hey, what's up? But he doesn't. So I end up having to interrupt the conversation. I'm like, hey, I need you to move your car so I can leave. And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. He then brings up that in August he doesn't have such a like busy schedule, so if I want to like hang out with him sometime, like he'd be totally down. And I'm kind of shocked when he says this to me because we had plans for the following weekend. Like I had asked him for a favor. I was like, hey, can I crash at your place because my roommate is throwing a party? And he like completely forgot or just like didn't care enough to even remember. So I told him, I was like, well, if you're around this Saturday, let me know. And then he like gave me a goodbye hug, and then he moved his car and I left. And it's just so frustrating because like I do not have the attention span. I do not want to have to compete for anyone's attention. Like if you like me, tell me. Otherwise, like leave me the fuck alone. Like I actually can't. I have such bad luck with dating that at this point, like I'm ready to become a nun. Because what's the point, really, if I'm just gonna get treated like this?
Never trust a man. Here's a story time y'all have all been waiting for. And before I get into it, I do just want to say that this entire situation is a direct result of a very hurt person hurting multiple people. So if you're not healed, please don't get into a relationship. It's not an excuse, but it's a reason why. So around my 19th birthday, this man comes into my life, and I've known him since middle school, but we never really talked. And despite his very questionable reputation, he was very charming with his words, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt, which is where I went wrong. So he travels for work, and he was in New York at the time. And after a few days of talking, he asked me to make it official because he just can't wait any longer. And this was already a red flag to me, but like, I just said fuck it, like YOLO. And so about a week goes by of like being official dating, I guess, and we're going great, like having genuine conversations, talking future plans, straight up love bombing basically. But anybody who's been love bombed knows that in the time it feels magical, wonderful. Then he springs it on me that he wants to get my name tattooed. And he wants it to be my signature. So I'm like, okay, fine. And I write my signature and I sent it to him. And then a few hours later, he snaps me a picture and my name is about that freaking big on his thigh. And so now obviously I'm like, oh, like this guy's kind of serious about me, right? Wrong. Then the 4th of July weekend rolls around and he tells me that he wants to come back to see me. And oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Like, I thought he's not going to be coming home for a few more weeks. Like, it's going to be terrible. Like, oh, I'm not going to be able to see him. But he decides to come back and I pick him up from the airport. And that whole weekend is just wonderful. We spend the entire weekend together. We're laughing, making jokes, like getting to know each other more. He meets my family. We go watch fireworks together. We buy fireworks together. Everything is just amazing. And then he springs the idea that I should go back to New York with him. And because I lost all common sense for some reason, I decided to go. Because I thought, I mean, what could go wrong? Like, that'll be fun, right? So I book a flight and we go to New York. The first few days in New York were literally wonderful. I loved it. He would go to work, I would sleep in, and when I would wake up, I would clean our room, I would clean the kitchen, clean up after his men that also were staying in the house, clean up cleaning up after 5 other men, and I would cook dinner. Then I would say after probably like a week of being there, he started getting really just like mean. And I'm not saying like he would be like he was directly mean, but he would blame it on it being a joke. So I couldn't really take it seriously. Like, he literally made me feel like I was going insane. There would be times where he would come home from work and I would be excited, right? And so I'd be like, hi. And he would look at me, stop what he was doing, and say, just shut the fuck up. Excuse me? What? What? And then after 2 weeks of being in New York with him and spending time with him and everything, one night I shut off the TV, roll over, and close my eyes to take my happy self to bed, right? And then I hear, do you think we took things too fast? I sat up so motherfucking quick. Because what do you mean, do you think we took things too fast? Of course we took things too fast. You got my name tattooed on me before even spending time with me again. And then honestly, the rest of the night was really just a blur. All I remember is that we broke up and he basically said that we'll try again later down the line if, you know, the universe allows it. And I was sick, just completely sick, because what do you mean? I am 1,200 miles away from my home and you broke up with me. You know, at least like bought me a ticket home and then say it. No, I was just like kind of stuck, right? So I wake up bright and early the next day because I am just sick to my stomach. Like, I can't sleep, I can't keep anything down, I can't even keep water down at this point because I am just ill. I just can't. And I booked myself a flight home for the next morning, early as fuck. Like, flight leaves at 7 in the morning. And I spend the whole day just dreading him coming home because I don't want to see his face. I just want to go home. I want to see my mom. I want to see my friends. I don't want to look at him. And then he gets home and he won't look at me. And so now I'm just like, That was supposed to be my job. Why are you ignoring me? And so I talked to him and I'm like, you know, this is our last night. Like, we don't have to make it awkward. Like, everything's okay, right? And so we kind of just like bite our tongues and everything goes back to normal for a night, right? He's making the same jokes, you know, just being normal. So the next morning we get up really early, like 4:30 in the morning, to go to the airport. And I keep it together the entire way there, right? Like, I'm not really that sad. I just kind of feel weird and everything's fine. He gives me a big old hug goodbye. And then once I get into the airport, like past security, and I'm just sitting at my gate, like alone, I lose it. I'm in complete shambles at this point. And he has the audacity to text me, I didn't want you to leave. Motherfucker, why'd you break up with me then? So I'm on the plane, and I go look at his TikTok. He blocked me. So I get on my secret account, because everybody has a secret account. Everyone has their own stalking account. And I look at his post, and he made a new post, and it is so obviously directed toward his ex-girlfriend. So I ask him about it. He denies it. Of course he does. Of course he denies it. Why would he admit it? So I fall asleep on the flight home, and I get home and I decide to go look at his TikTok again, because I'm just curious, you know? This man was just talking about getting married 2 days ago, you know? And I see that he posts again, and the caption has his ex's initial in it. So I text him and say, you know, I really hope she takes you back, because you obviously miss her. And that's when he finally admits that he misses his ex, and that's the reason that we broke up. And at this point, I'm just pissed, because why didn't you just tell me that in the beginning? I would have understood. You know, I still would have been pissed, but at least I would have been like, oh, it's not just because we took things too fast, it's just because you were still hung up on someone else. I swallowed my anger and said, maybe they're meant to be. Maybe all this just wasn't meant to happen, and they're gonna live happily ever after, and I'm gonna be so happy for them. Then I get a message from a girl saying that in the beginning of us dating, he was messaging her saying that he really loved her. They have a history, by the way. And that he wants to be with her. So now I'm pissed, and I decide to go text his ex, because I know damn well that he is not going to be very honest about what happened with me and him. She responds, asks questions, I answer them, and she basically says, I know he fucked up, but I know he really loves me. So I say, you know, you deserve happiness, and if it's with him, by all means, go ahead, girl. Then I get a message from a different girl saying the exact same thing as the other girl, except she was supposed to fly out to New York to see him the weekend before I did. And to top this entire story off, I go look at the ex's account, and I look at his account, and she is back together with him in New York, sleeping in the same bed that I was, with a motherfucking rock on her finger. The moral of the story is men will go to great lengths to love bomb you when they're still involved with multiple other women and in love with their ex. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, that you should...
Hi everyone, I wanted to make a little video and talk to you guys about my husband's story and just kind of how we found out everything. So for Christmas this year, my husband wanted, like, he's always talked about wanting to just get blood tests done so he can know, like, what's going on with his health and just, like, work on improving his health from there. And so in the end of December, he got his labs done, and they were a little bit concerning, like, a lot of inflammation. His blood count levels were a little bit concerning. They were like a 12, but we didn't really know that they were concerning at that time. It just, a lot of things said abnormal, so we were just like, okay, let's work on this. Sometimes I think I'm a doctor, so I try to do a little bit of research and get him on a few supplements that I thought would help, and we were just gonna like reevaluate in 6 months. And then a couple months later, he started getting these night sweats that kind of came out of nowhere. He would wake up in the middle of the night, like literally drenched in sweat, and it wasn't hot because it was like February, and we live in Utah, so it's cold in February, like freezing. And it just progressively got worse. Like, it started out like once a week, and then it was like a couple times a week, and then it was like every night. And that was concerning to me because I'm like, you're a male, you shouldn't have night sweats. Like,
you're not postpartum, you're not going through menopause, I don't know why you're having night sweats, this is really weird. And we just kind of brushed it off, and he thought, you know, it's just hot at night, like I just get hot. He's also had a few other symptoms, like he couldn't regulate his temperature very well, and that progressively got worse. Like in June, we were in Arizona, and he was working from home, but he would go outside and work like in the hot sun. It's like 105 degrees, and he would work outside because he was freezing in the house, and it wasn't cold in the house, it was like 75. So just like weird things like that. Some other symptoms were he had been dropping weight like probably over the past couple of years, but it got a little bit more significant like in the past 6 months. Nothing that we really noticed because we weren't weighing him. He also developed a little bit of a cough in Arizona, and I tried to brush it off. That it was just like allergies or something. He also started urinating a lot during the night. Like he would get up very frequently to go to the bathroom, which is something a 25-year-old male doesn't do a lot. So that was a little bit of a weird symptom. And then when we got home from Arizona, this trip in Arizona happened June 5th through the 11th or something, so really recently. He kind of had shortness of breath. Like he would go upstairs and just be like so out of breath, couldn't catch his breath. Like it seemed like he had ran a marathon or something. Like something weird was happening. And that day that we got home, we also went to Parade of Homes. Basically straight from the airport, we went to look at some homes, and his ankles were swollen when we got home that night. And I was like, that's a little bit weird. He actually noticed it. He thought it was a little bit weird. His ankles have never been swollen before, so why his ankles swollen? Like we travel all the time, so we've never noticed that. That was a little bit strange. He actually had a primary care doctor's visit scheduled for July, but I kind of just decided on June 12th, the day we went to the ER, that we couldn't wait any longer. We needed to figure out what was going on with him, because a lot of people in my family, we don't visit Arizona a ton, but maybe like every couple months, a lot of people in my family were telling me that they were worried about Chad because of the way he looked. He was very, very pale, and he was skinny, and I see him all the time, so I didn't see a big difference. But these people who don't see him all the time notice a difference, and so that really pushed me to think, okay, I think something really bad is happening, and we need to figure this out. We also thought it was heart issues. My family has an extensive history of heart issues, and I freaked out, and I called him crying, and I was like, we need to go to the ER, I think. And he's like, I'm fine, I'm at work, why do we need to go to the ER? And I'm like, I don't know, we just need to go and make sure that you're fine. And thank goodness that I had that prompting and that push from my whole family, because we went to the ER, and thank goodness we did at that time, because we caught it early. We went to the ER at about 5:30. I finally convinced him to go, and we got there. They did, and Chad kind of told him, I think something's going on with my heart. I have shortness of breath, and like I've had a cough, and like all of his other symptoms. And so they took labs, and they did an EKG on his heart, and his heart came back normal. His labs were super abnormal. His hemoglobin levels were a 7.9, and they're usually like a 15 to an 18 for his age, living in Utah. So very, very, very low, and they actually do a blood transfusion if you get under a 7. So we were really close to that, and they basically came back. They did chest x-ray too. They basically came back and said, you're just really anemic, and we're going to send you home because we don't know what's going on, but something's causing you to be anemic, so just follow up with your primary care doctor and try and figure out what's going on. That's all they said. And they were going to discharge us from the hospital, and then about 5 minutes later they came back in and said, your chest x-ray just came back, and we found something really concerning, so we're going to do a CT scan on you. So they wheel him back, do a CT scan, and then he comes back, and we're just waiting, and we're just kind of like,
I don't really know what they're gonna find. Kind of just like hoping it's nothing bad, but they seemed very panicked when they came in. And so they got the results back and they all came in. Tons of people came in. Like there's probably 10 people in the room with us. And they just said, your lymph nodes are really enlarged in your chest and neck. And there's a ton of them and it looks like lymphoma. So we need to send you to a different hospital so you can meet with an oncologist right now and figure out what's really going on. But they were pretty confident it was lymphoma. And so we basically were like, okay, he has cancer. Like, what does this even mean? We don't know what lymphoma is. Like, what is lymphoma? Obviously his lymph nodes are enlarged, but like, what does this mean? And like, what stage is he at? Like, how do we know this? So this is when they sent him to, they were going to send us to a different hospital in Salt Lake City that had an oncologist. So we called his mom, and we called my parents. His mom was with Lennon, sleeping here, because we had never left Lennon for a night. Like, we've never slept away from Lennon at that point. And so we were just kind of like not really sure what to do, but she stayed the night here. Lennon went to bed great, thank goodness. But you called her and told her that they probably think Chad has cancer, and that was really hard because if you guys know Chad's family, he has an extensive history of cancer. His brother died of neuroblastoma when he was 4. Chad wasn't even born yet. His mom has had breast cancer. His uncle died of Hodgkin's lymphoma. Well, not of Hodgkin's lymphoma, but he had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then died of another cancer later in life. But there's a lot of cancer in Chad's family and history, so I'm gonna do a part 2 because this is such a long story. But okay, I'm finally making a part 2 of my husband's diagnosis story. So the last I left off, we were in the hospital and they had just told us that they had found what looked like very enlarged lymph nodes in his left clavicle and chest area, along with like up in his neck over here. And so they were basically going to send us to a different hospital because they didn't have any oncologists in the hospital that we were at. And so we drove ourselves up because we were fine to drive. And we stopped and got canes on the way, which I couldn't eat a freaking thing. But Chad was like, he needed to eat. He hadn't eaten since we got to the ER at like 5. So, I mean, we both hadn't eaten. But I was like so sick to my stomach, I could not eat. And then we went to St. Mark's. We got checked into the ER again. They basically did the same tests, and we were just waiting all night in the ER. We had a really fun experience in there. We had a very old guy peeing all over on the other side of the curtain. It was really fun. But we finally got put up in a room at around 3:30 a.m. and then we were able to like finally get some sleep. And the next morning he had a CT scan, and I'm pretty sure it was a CT scan, like another CT scan. And then basically we met with a couple of other doctors up there, and we also had a lot of people telling us like, why didn't they send you to Huntsman, which is like a huge cancer institute hospital up in Salt Lake City, which we were like right there, so why didn't they send us up there? And I think it's because there was the hospital that we were at, St. Mark's, was a sister hospital to the other hospital that we were at, so it just made sense for them to like send the business to them and keep it in the family, which I think is what they did. But we ultimately decided that we wanted to go to Huntsman, and we even talked to some of the doctors at this hospital, and they were like, we would never tell you to not go there. Like, that's where they have the clinical trials, they have these amazing treatments, like you will get the best care if you can get in there, but it's kind of hard. So we just decided to do that. So we ended up leaving the hospital that day. My parents had flown in, and we got to spend the weekend with them and with his family too, and just like kind of take our mind off things and be able to process like what was really going on. So that was super nice. And on Monday morning we drove up to the to Huntsman, which is actually the University of Utah's hospital, and we went through the ER and kind of told them like our whole story and that we just wanted to be here instead. We felt more comfortable, and we never got pushed away or anything. We got up into a room that same day, and then we just kind of got going on like the things that needed to happen, like a PET scan that happened like a couple days later, and then a biopsy happened a couple days later. The PET scan did show very active lymph nodes, very active cells in his lymph nodes. So that was a good sign because it was only right here where we thought, and it was active. So that usually means it's Hodgkin's and it's very treatable, which is what we were hoping for. But we still wouldn't have known until we got the biopsy. So a couple days later, he was transferred over to Huntsman, which is like literally across the street. Like, it's the same hospital, but that's the cancer hospital. And he spent the night there, a couple nights, and then he did his biopsy, spent the rest of the weekend, and a few days later there we finally got the results. I'm pretty sure the next Tuesday or Wednesday. Gosh, it was so long in the hospital, it was terrible. But it was confirmed that he has Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 2B. So the B basically means that he had all the symptoms, like the night sweats, the fatigue, the weight loss, fevers, chills, like all those things, which are, now we know, signs, major signs that it's probably lymphoma. But looking at each sign individually, you wouldn't think. So a lot of people are coming at me in the comments saying like, why don't you think about it? These are so obvious that these are like lymphoma. I'm like, okay, how would anyone know? Like, I'm not taught that in freaking elementary school. Like, how am I supposed to know? Anyway, but yeah, so we have been working with Huntsman, and that's where he's been going to get his treatments. He's done 2 rounds of chemotherapy, and he's on ABVD chemo right now, and then he's actually on a clinical trial, but it will be totally random if he actually ends up getting on the clinical trial drug. So we don't know for sure if he will get on that. It's totally random, 50-50 chance he'll have his PET scan here in like a couple of weeks, and then we'll kind of know his treatment plan moving forward. But for this specific trial, they do 4 rounds of ABVD chemotherapy, and then they reassess at the PET scan, and then you get put into different pools of like what drug you will either continue on chemo or get on the immunotherapy drug. So, and that is a BV-Nivo drug. So I am hoping and praying that he can potentially get on that drug, because it just seems like you'll have a little bit of better of quality of life, but we really don't know. It's a totally random 50-50 chance. So I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, but that's what we're praying for. He is doing his 3rd round of chemo on Thursday and meeting with his oncologist, and to be honest, his main symptoms have really been extreme exhaustion. He has been nauseous a little bit, but this last time he didn't even take any nausea medicine or anything. He was able to just push through and he was totally fine. And the amazing thing about chemo and his cancer is that his symptoms have gone away from his cancer, which is so amazing because he doesn't have night sweats anymore, which he was not sleeping at all with these night sweats. Like, he would wake up every hour and like have to get up, go to the bathroom and change his sheets. Like, he was soaking wet. So it's honestly amazing what chemo has done for his body, and he's gained so much weight back. He's gained 20 pounds since when we left the hospital. So honestly, it's been such a blessing that he was able to start this treatment and already see like results of him healing. Like, I never thought that he would look so healthy on chemo and like gain weight. It's honestly so great. We are really grateful. And we're just grateful for all the prayers and the messages, because so many people have like reached out and showed their support. So many people have been praying, and it really means a lot, and we can feel all of it. So we're so grateful. But I will keep you guys updated with our treatment, and I will see you guys later. Bye.
Okay, hi, hello. If you're seeing this video, it's probably for a reason, so I highly encourage you to stick around and listen to the whole thing. I've known that I wanted to make and post this video for months now. I just never was able to build up the courage to do it, but today I kind of just was like, now or never. It's not a shameful thing. Sharing your testimony is not something to be embarrassed about ever. I encourage everyone to do it. I'm posting my testimony for the world to see, not only for me, but for other people. For myself, obviously, to hold myself accountable so that friends, family, strangers can help me hold myself accountable on my walk with faith. But also for other people, I am hoping this reaches somebody. Maybe you just hear something you've been needing to hear, you hear something that speaks to you, you have a question get answered, maybe parts of my testimony or the whole thing are similar to you. I just want you to know you're not alone and you're never too far gone for God. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a writer, so I'm not good with on the spot just yapping. I will get so off track. So I spent the last couple hours writing out my testimony. That's what I'm going to be reading from. I feel like it's at a place where I'm ready to share it. I don't think I'm going to cry, but just know there is some pretty serious topics that get talked about in this, so just full warning for that. Let's dig right into it, shall we? Late last year, someone I distantly knew shared their testimony. Ever since I watched it, I felt God gently placing it on my heart to share mine one day too. But I also knew this wasn't something I wanted to write and speak about from a place of fresh emotion or brokenness. I wanted to write it when the timing was right, when I could look back and see God's hand even through my darkest seasons. Today is the last day of the month, July 31st, and I just turned 20 years old. And I finally feel like now is the right time. This is not a story about how I have everything figured out. It is not a story about being perfect. It is not a story about being a perfect Christian. It's about a God who never stopped pursuing me, even when I spent years running from him. In 2023, my life changed forever, and there began a series of traumatic events that took over my life. I was violently assaulted by a man I knew and trusted, and what followed was a year-long court battle that consumed my life emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Every court hearing reopened wounds that never had time to heal in the first place. Eventually, justice was served, and he did go to prison, but that's not where the story ended, because even after the verdict, I wasn't free from what had happened to me. Somewhere during that battle, I turned to alcohol instead of God, and there began a huge problem. I convinced myself that it numbed the pain, when in reality it was only burying it deeper. Alcohol slowly became a crutch until it nearly became my death. In August of 2024, I was involved in a car accident that I'm incredibly fortunate to have survived. The injuries I suffered were nobody's fault but my own, and I carry full responsibility for that. Even so, the consequences were life-changing, permanently changing my mind and body, and I found myself carrying yet another burden I didn't know how to process. Not long after my car accident, I entered a relationship that quickly became incredibly toxic. We brought out the worst in each other. It was unhealthy, destructive, and at times crossed the line into abuse, on both ends. We hurt each other in ways that never should have happened. By August of 2025, things had escalated so badly that law enforcement had to step in and intervene. The aftermath of the events that happened that night and throughout the whole relationship left me so overwhelmed with stress, anxiety, and depression that shortly after, I had a miscarriage. There are pains in life that words simply cannot describe, but that loss is one of them. I wish I could say that was the lowest point of my story, but unfortunately, it was not. In just June of this year, I had disappeared for days with no intention of ever coming back. I was so blinded and lost, I didn't know what else to do. I truly believed that 19 years of life was enough for me. I had already severely injured myself, and I had convinced myself that the world would be better without me in it. Then my phone lit up, and a notification popped up from my Bible app. Romans 8:18. To someone else, it may have looked like another random daily Bible verse that they would have ignored, but to me, it stopped me in my tracks. That's because Romans 8:18 is tattooed on my neck. It's a verse that has always been a huge part of me. The specific verse says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." In summary, it means that God is greater than my highs and lows. I don't believe that notification was an accident nor a coincidence. I believe God met me exactly where I was that night, in the middle of the night in my car. Not because I deserved it, not because I had earned it, but because he wasn't finished writing my story. The truth is, I'm not an innocent person who simply had bad things happen to her. I've sinned more than I've ever been courageous enough to admit. I've lied, I've misled people, I've fallen into sexual sin, I've used words that do not honor God, I cuss severely, I've gotten drunk, I've smoked, I've partied, I've dabbled in drugs, I've judged people, I gossip, I involve myself in places and conversations where I have no business being. I've chosen my own desires over God's commands more times than I can count. I've been hurt so incredibly deep, but I have also hurt others, and I want to recognize that. That is why I need Jesus just as much as the next person does. For a long time, I tried to heal by changing my circumstances and situations. I thought that if the trauma ended, I would be okay. If I found the right man, friendship, or relationship, I would be okay. If I could just escape my past and my wrongdoings, I would be okay. But healing was never found in those things. Healing was found at the feet of Christ and always will be. Today I'm making a declaration, not because I've already arrived at my destination, but because I know where I'm going. I want to become the woman that God created me to be and is calling me to be. I want to be known for honesty instead of deception, for loyalty instead of selfishness, for kindness instead of bitterness, for humility instead of pride, for grace instead of judgment. I want to be so deeply rooted in Christ that when life shakes me, I don't fall apart because my foundation is no longer built on people, relationships, or circumstances. It's built on Him. I know I will make mistakes. Sanctification is a lifelong process, and I will never be perfect on this side of heaven. But I refuse to keep making peace with the sins that once held me captive and sometimes still do. From this day forward, I am choosing to honor God with every aspect of my life. I'm choosing purity. I'm choosing obedience over temporary pleasure, faith over fear, peace over chaos, conviction over comfort. I don't want a faith that only exists on Sunday mornings, in a church, or when I read my Bible. I want a faith that changes the way I speak, love, forgive, work, date, serve, and live every single day. I want a faith that is so strong other people can see it before I even speak. This isn't me claiming that I've become a completely different person overnight. This is me surrendering. This is me laying down the woman I have been for so many years so that God can continue creating the woman He intended me to be all along. If you've ever felt too broken, too sinful, too ashamed, or too far gone for God, let my story and my testimony be proof that His mercy reaches places our shame never could. The enemy wanted my story to end in addiction, trauma, abuse, loss, and God had other plans. My testimony is not that I survived. My testimony is that Jesus found me when I couldn't find myself. And no matter what comes next, I know this with complete certainty. The God who carried me through every chapter behind me will be faithful to carry me through every chapter still to come. To God alone be all the glory. With that, like I said, I just want, man, woman, whoever out there to know you are not alone. You're never too far gone for God. I think that everyone should have faith in God and walk with God. Nobody's story is perfect. Everyone's gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm still struggling with cussing and vaping and lust. Lust is probably the biggest thing that has controlled my life. Lust over me lusting over other people. And so those are kind of my big three that I really just want to let go of and surrender. Like I said, I hope this video reaches at least one person, moves somebody, calls somebody, touches somebody's heart. And I don't know, I truthfully hope that I've made the right decision by posting this. I think that I have. I think it's going to be a great thing for me and for other people. That's my testimony.
Do you guys want to hear some gossip about my crazy ex? Of course you do. This was the man that I dated in college when I was around 18, 19. So, around that time when you date the most evil man in the world, what are you going to do? Just FYI, we dated for 3 years. So I'm going to try to fit everything into this 10 minutes, but I'm going to do my best. So going right into it, first things first, the man was jealous. We met doing theater. We were doing different plays. We go to this awards ceremony. We're already dating at this point. We go to this awards ceremony. I get an award. He does that whole night pouting, didn't congratulate me, did nothing. It's like I just feel like all my effort went, unrewarded, whatever. I don't give a fuck. So, you know how men do that thing where like you're having a special night so they try to ruin it? Yeah. The same thing on one of my birthdays, but that one's not okay. Skip that one. Also, he had like super main character syndrome. Okay, I can bring up the birthday because yeah, super main character syndrome. So we come up to LA, and I didn't live here at this point. So we come up to LA, and we're going to, I have this plan. I want to go to like museums, and then I want to go to dinner. That's my plan. And I have like my friends and family with me, and he comes with. And we're like going through the museum, and he just kind of like breaks off from the group and like speeds through. He's like, well, this just isn't really my thing. And I was like, all right, do whatever the fuck you want. And I went with my friend, and we took our sweet ass time walking through, looking at the art because it's my fucking birthday. We're waiting in line for dinner, and again, we're both met doing theater. We're both actors, and he's like, I'm gonna live here one day. Like, I don't care what it takes, what I have to do. Like, I'll even be homeless. Like, I'm gonna live here, and I'm gonna be an actor, and I'm gonna succeed. And I was like, okay, dude. I live here now. He still lives at home. I'm an actor with an agent. Disappeared off the face of the earth. Don't know where he is. Don't know what he's doing. Don't care. Anyway, so main character syndrome. Yes, just that type of thing where he would like ruin or try to ruin or make important moments about himself. You know how they do that? Okay. Super dramatic. He had this very dramatic backstory. It was very hard to tell whether or not it was like real or not. Because at the beginning, of course, I was like, I have no reason not to believe this. But, you know, as time goes on, you're like, So his whole thing was that he used to get into like a lot of fights, and he would like, because of his, you know, trauma, or, you know, he had like a hard time with his ADHD, and he had like issues growing up without a dad. Listen, I'm not knocking any of that. That shit's valid. So his whole thing was like that he went to the park right behind his house, and he would just get into fights with all these like huge dudes, and that's what he would do every night. And like as time went on, this got more and more embellished. So it started off with like, oh yeah, we used to get into fights, and by the time we broke up, he was talking about how they had hooked him up to a car battery. So now I'm not quite sure about how the science works on that one, so I don't want to say anything, but we got there. Mind you, we dated 3 years. I'd been to his house many, many times, including at night. Never saw a soul in that park. And he was like, oh, it's because we divided up the territory. Mind you, he's alleging that all of this happened starting when he was like 14. I'm not saying he didn't get into any fight. He was also like, oh yeah, I don't have any scarring because I heal really fast. Okay, so whatever. But then he had this whole thing of like he has PTSD because of all of his horrible fighting experience. And I was like, okay, you should go to therapy, you know? And my dumb ass is like looking up therapists, but he's like, I can't do that. So I'm looking up therapists for him, but none of them work. And oh, that one doesn't. It's just therapists don't get me. Like, I don't, you know, that stuff that they do. And he would like do these little performances, because mind you, when he was asleep, but when he was asleep, he would have these like nightmares, twitching, and like he punched a wall, and he'd be like you know, and I'd be like, wake up, are you okay? At the beginning I was like, my babe, and then after I was like, get the fuck up, you know what I mean? Because it starts to lose credibility. And as I was getting the ick more and more, I was caring less and less. Sorry, my hair is in my face. Okay. So there was a point where, because we met in community college, and I was going to transfer to a 4-year, and he wasn't done with community yet, so he was going to stay. Mind you, we both lived at home. The community college and my 4-year university were in the same city, and we lived 8 minutes apart. Literally nothing was changing except we weren't going to be at school together every day. And he asked me if I could quit dance and or theater for like a whole semester or maybe a year, just so we could make sure we were okay. Turned into a huge fight. This was like 1.5 years in. I should have broken up with him then. I drove to his house with the intention of breaking up, and I should have done it, and I didn't do it. That's the whole thing. We were having like a fight in the street. Because I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And he was like, I would do it for you. And I was like, I would never ask you to, weirdo. So like shit like that, right? He was freaking out because we were going to different schools, as if we were middle schoolers. And then I go to the university, and he like insists that he's still in school, and he's like, yeah, I never see him with a backpack, I never see him with, I don't see any like study materials or anything. So my mom and I figured out by the end of our relationship that he had been lying about being in school, and that as soon as I left that school and stopped like helping him look up all his little classes and stuff, that he just stopped going to school. And we're pretty sure he was lying to me and his mom about that. So not good. Here's my favorite part, the fake brother. Okay, so part of his backstory, very dramatic, traumatic backstory. So he didn't live with his dad. This part's real. And so he alleged that he had a half brother. And now his whole thing is the half brother's name was Aiden. And because all of the kids in his family, like of his generation, are named with A names. So he was like, well, I want my kids to have like an A name. And I want to name, if I have a boy, Aiden, after this brother of his. And I don't like that name, but I was like, okay. And at this point he was like, oh my god, we're totally gonna get married and have babies. And I was like, I'm 19, but okay. You know, you live and you learn. So it turns out that this brother allegedly had a different mom. It kind of knew each other, but this kid was really troubled, and he had passed away of alcoholism at the age of 19. No, 15. Sorry, that part's important. So the brother had died, so he's like, oh, like I want to name my kid after my dead brother. And I'm like, damn, that's crazy. But like, his mom had never mentioned this kid. Anyway, after a while and after a pattern of pathological lying and like picking apart his very dramatic stories, and if you know, you know, like, I hope I don't sound like an asshole who's like bashing on this kid with very traumatic life. This shit was not real. It wasn't real. Anyway, after a while, he can tell I'm starting to lose interest. 3 years in, I have the massive ick, but I don't know how to break up with somebody. I would have broken up with him ages ago, but you know. And all of a sudden, he's like, I just found out Aiden's alive. I'm like, what do you mean? And he was like, yeah, like it turns out that, you know, he lied to me. His mom lied to me. Like he didn't really die. Like they just had to send him away to rehab. I don't remember what the story was. Either they had to send him away to rehab, or she, you know, didn't want him to have contact. I don't know. But that he faked his death and he was actually alive. And I was like, damn, that's crazy. Didn't give him a reaction. And he was like fuming, of course. Now, I have 1 minute. So the way I decided to break up with him, mind you, I had the ick for a while, but I was young and I was dumb. I'm visiting my brother, and we're like playing this game of just asking a bunch of questions. And my mom asked the question, who are your ride or dies? And I'm like, I name like, you know, her, my brother, my best friends, my aunts, my uncles, my godmother. And at the end they're like, what about your boyfriend? And I was like, ooh, forgot about him. So I did eventually break up with him, and I'm running out of time, but don't marry the man you date at 19, okay?
Can you go a little faster? I have places to freaking be.
Hey guys, here's the story time from the last video that everyone's been asking for. Okay, I have some notes here so that I don't leave out any parts that may be significant. Also, I may be talking about sexual assault and physical abuse, so if that triggers you, don't watch this video. Alright, so me and the guy from the last video started dating in March of 2025. We did medium distance for a little bit over a year. We would see each other about once a week. It would be on Sundays, we would go to church, lunch, and then whatever else for the rest of the day. Did that for a little bit over a year, and then it came time for him to start college. He was going to go to Coastal Carolina originally, but his program was messed up and everything. So I currently go to a tech college just for the time being until I decide to transfer to a 4-year, but he decided that he was going to go to the same college as me, which meant he had to move down here. So we ended up moving in together, lived together for literally 10 days. And it got to a point where I'm a CNA and I'm in nursing school. I was working a 12, 16-hour shift as a CNA, coming home, cooking his dinner, and then going to bed. Like, he had me make him dinner every single night. There was not a single night where I came home in those 10 days from a shift and he made dinner. He made me do it. Okay, so this is the part where the sexual assault occurs. He told me that I was going to be his first. So in my head, we were each other's first, right? Well, recently I found out that I wasn't his first, which it's fine. I'm not mad at the girl at all. She's actually so sweet. Anyways, but it's just the fact that like he lied about that kind of hurts. Okay, and then after I would make dinner a lot of nights, he would want to have sex, and I would tell him no most nights, and he would scream and yell, wouldn't let me go to bed until I did anything. And that just, I didn't realize it at the time, but now looking back at it, I realized that that's what sexual assault is, and I just never realized it because I wasn't properly educated. Also, I would like to add that he is very oddly kinky, like had weird kinks, and if you didn't give into them, he would scream and yell at you. He would be very mad at you, like you wouldn't be able to go to bed, nothing. One of his kinks was trying to have sex in public, and I would not go for that, and every single time he would be very, very mad. So after about 7 days of living together, we go on this beach trip with his family. It's me, him, his mom, his dad, his grandma, and they have a beach house. So first night we were good. Second night, during the day we had gone down to the beach, and we were already arguing a little bit because he was mad at me that I kept touching him. I was like holding his hand and stuff, and he told me to stop. So I did, and he was mad at me. Then we got in the water, and I started choking on water. I asked him for help, and I'm like very visibly choking on water bad, like I can't really breathe. He comes over there and he takes his hand, and he's a big guy, okay? He's like 6'2", maybe 6 foot, something like that, 260, big guy. Holds me under the water into bubbles, like I can't barely breathe. Mind you, I was already choking on the water. So I come back, finally he lets me up out the water. He tells me that I was lying to him, and I start screaming and yelling. I'm like, why would you push me under the water when I just told you I was choking? Like that's where the physical abuse started. So after he finally lets me out the water and I yelled at him, whatever, we go back to the house, and I go to the upstairs room where I was sleeping, because for the first night, for some reason, we weren't allowed to sleep together, but then the second and third night we were. I don't really know what was happening because we lived together, so. But I go back up to that room, and he's yelling at me because I'm ruining his trip, because I shouldn't be reacting like that to him doing something, and that he was just joking. Pushing me and holding me under the water until I cannot breathe while I'm already choking on water is not joking, that's abuse. Okay, so after he's done yelling and screaming at me, I take a nap, I go to bed, whatever. He comes back up there later, and he's starting with me again. So I screamed at him. I told him to get the fuck out of the room, to leave me alone, and that was that. Like, I definitely was screaming at him, but I had a reason for screaming at him. Alright, we go to sleep, whatever. The next day, we get up, and he's gonna take me to 7 room. So we get in the truck, we're on the way to Southern Brew, we're like 15 minutes down the road, and his mom calls, and she's like, hey, you guys need to come to breakfast with us. So, mind you, he's grown, I'm basically grown, like, I understand that that's his parents, but also, like, we're already almost there. We could have grabbed the coffee and then came to breakfast. He starts yelling and screaming at me after he gets off the phone with her because we were already 15 minutes away, and I'm like, how is that my fault? Anyways, we come back. We didn't get Southern Brew. We come back, and we go to this first breakfast place. It's closed, like, they don't have whatever they wanted to eat. We go to a second breakfast place, okay? It's hot. This might be a little TMI for you guys. I was on day 40 of my period, and I have big thighs. My thighs were chafing, baby. So, my thighs are chafing, and so, like, I'm walking trying to make sure my thighs don't chafe anymore. Well, on the way into the second restaurant, he screams across the parking lot, "Why are you walking like that?" So I turned around, and I was already fed up from the day before, and I was like, I'm walking like this because it's hot, my thighs are chafing, I'm on day 40 of my period, like, just leave me alone. Alright, we go to a third breakfast place, and I'm fed up. It's been 3 hours now that we were supposed to eat, and I was supposed to have Southern Brew. I'm fed up. It's hot. So he goes inside, there's a wait, and then he comes back outside, and there's nowhere to sit. And I was like, okay, well, let's just go sit in the truck because it's hot. And so we're sitting in the truck, and he starts with me. He starts talking about how I shouldn't be walking like that, I shouldn't have yelled at him, yada, yada, yada. I told him, I was like, literally just stop talking to me. If you're going to keep on, just take me back to the beach house. Well, he won't take me back to the beach house. So we're arguing. 20 minutes goes by. Table's ready. Well, he goes in and tells his mom something. He wouldn't tell me what he told his mom. And comes back out and starts up the truck. And I said, where are you going? And he wouldn't tell me. So I put it in park, and I pressed the button and turned it off. I said, where are you taking me? He turns it back on. Still won't tell me where he's taking me. So we played this game where, sorry, my Octo Buddy started slipping. But we played this game where he wouldn't tell me. I would put the truck in park and turn it off like 3 times. Oh gosh, this is such a long story. Finally, he tells me that he's taking me home. I said, to what home? Because we have mine, his house together, and my parents' house. He was like, I'm taking you to your mom's. And I said, no, you're not. I pay the bills at the house. You're gonna take me to my house. Well, he wouldn't let me go back to my house. So we go to the beach house with his mom in the truck, by the way, because she said that she needed to be in there to hear what was happening. She wanted to make sure that I was streaming. Whatever. We go back to the beach house, and I'm talking to him. I'm like, are we ready to have what's happening? And I'm like, he starts packing all my things. And I said, okay, well, we need to at least have a conversation so that I know where I'm going, what's happening, what's going on. So we sat on the porch for 5 minutes and had a conversation, and then his mommy calls him back inside, and they talked, and all of a sudden, he wants me to go home so bad, and he hates my guts. So then, at this point, I try to come in the house to get my things. Well, they told me that I wasn't allowed to come in, and then proceeded to lock the door from the inside. So in there for 10-15 minutes, him and his mom packed my bags, and half of the stuff that was in the last video didn't get put in my bags. Guys, I'm so sorry, this is a 10-minute video, but there's going to be part 2 after this. So then, I'm under the impression that he's taking me home, but then he carries my bags down and everything, and puts them in his mom's car. I said, why are they going in your mom's car? And she was like, because I'm taking you home, and he's just going to follow, he just needs a moment to thank you, yada, yada, yada. So I called my mom, and I told her, I'm calling my mom, my mom's going to come meet because I'm not riding home with you. And she's holding the whole time on the phone with my mom, telling me that my mom doesn't even come get me, and that she will bring me in this area. I said, fuck no, my mom is coming to get me. Leave me alone. Okay, part 2 right after this, guys. Okay, part 2, I'm going to try and make this fast. I think I left off on the part where I told them that my mom was going to meet us halfway. So we're on the way, and he's in front of us. He's dogging his truck out. Dogging it out so bad. Well, we have to meet because we stop at a gas station because he still had my wallet in his truck. Granted, I didn't know everything that was still in his truck and that was still left at the beach house because they packed my bags. So I was under the impression all of my things were there. But no, my nephew's birthday gifts that I bought while we were on the trip were still in his truck. I had a bunch of hairbrushes, lip gloss, whatever in his truck. My wallet, everything was still in his truck. But I didn't get half of it back. Okay, so after he gives my wallet back to his mom, she gives it to me, and he took my car key and dipped it in ice cream and then used his air vent to dry it, so my car key didn't work anymore. So I showed it to his mom. I was like, what is this? And she was like, oh, I don't know. Okay, then she takes her sweet old time taking me to meet my mom. It was a 4-hour-long drive total, 2 hours to my mom. Took us 3 hours because she was going under the speed limit the whole time. She stopped to get food, stopped to get a drink, whatever. And the whole time I'm asking her, I'm like, do you know if he's breaking up with me? Like, what's going on? And she was like, I don't know. You just need to calm down, yada, yada, yada. Finally, we're almost there to where we're meeting my mom. And I said, are you going to call him to figure out where I'm going? Like, what's happening? And she calls him. And she's talking to him. And he says that he's done on the phone with her. So she tells me that he said he's done. And he, before I even had the chance to call him to get confirmation, he didn't break up with me. She broke up with me for him. Before I had the chance to call him to get confirmation about whatever's going on, he blocks me on everything except messages. So I call him and I said on the phone, because he didn't block me on messages, I said, are we done? And whatever we have, he was like, yes, we're done. I said, okay, so we're not working anything out? Like, we're not going to have a conversation, anything? And he was like, no, I'm just done. I'm so tired of you. You're always yelling at me. I said, I was yelling at you because you were literally he called me fat that day. He tried to drown me, basically. And he was being abusive. So, whatever. Finally, I get in the car with my mom, and my mom and his mom are getting my stuff out his mom's car because I was sobbing. His mom took my house key off of my wallet. So on the way back, my mom and his mom were talking and like texting. And my mom said that we were gonna come get all my things from their house. And I bought everything in that house. The furniture, I bought most of it. Groceries, everything in the kitchen, all the decorations, towels, everything I paid for. We got to the house and it's his mom, his older brother, and then me, my mom, myself. And I realized I didn't have my keys, so I said something to his mom. I was like, huh, funny that I don't have my key anymore. And she just sat there the whole time, makes snarky comments, whatever. So I made snarky comments back. Anyways, long story short, in 20 minutes, me and my family moved my entire life out of that house. I took everything. I had bought most of his clothes. I took that. Everything that I bought, I took. I took the kitchen table. I took the towels, the decorations, like literally everything. And then his mom said that his truck was in the shop and insinuated to me that I was the one that broke it because I kept putting it in park. Girl, trucks get put in park and turned off every single day, multiple times a day. I did it 3 times. That truck didn't break. It was because your son was out here dogging it out. Anyways, I realized that half my stuff wasn't in my bags whenever I get home. So my mom texted his mom and was like, Paisley needs her stuff back. And then they go back and forth, whatever. And then it's like a week later and his mom texts my mom again. And my mom was like, don't worry about bringing any of it. Paisley already rebought everything. Like, she doesn't need it. She doesn't want to speak to you guys. Like, just leave her alone. Yesterday, she's going to text my mom talking about some, we just got Blank's truck back from the shop and I found even more of Paisley's stuff. So I'm going to do a porch drop off today at 12. So 12 o'clock rolls around, she doesn't show up. She doesn't bring my stuff till 3:15 that day. Okay. Anyways, long story short, I finally got my stuff back. And yeah, here's some rules he had for me, guys. During our relationship, I wasn't allowed to wear makeup to school. I'm in college, okay? I wore makeup to school probably 2 times. One time I wore makeup. Okay, I had my hair done like this, makeup, and then I wore a Free People romper dress. And he yelled and screamed at me the whole day because I was showing off for someone, but I didn't speak to anyone at my school. I was allowed to wear sweatpants and a t-shirt to school. no makeup, and usually couldn't have my hair done. I wasn't allowed to listen to Zach Bryan. If I didn't do what he asked me to do in like a sexual manner, he would yell and scream at me. I wouldn't be able to go to sleep that night. He wanted me to have dinner cooked for him every single night, no matter my shift. And there's lots of other rules that he had for me. But that's basically my story time. All I have to say is that if you're dating a man who yells at you when you don't want to do anything sexual, hits you, attempts to drown you, takes your things and won't return them, or is stuck up their mom's ass, please stop dating them, because it doesn't get any better. Okay, so that's my story time. Bye, guys.